suck you up and I'll spit you out and I'll play with your babies till you scream and shout, oh yeah.
Welcome to our June Patreon for Burn It All Down, which we're recording aptly on July 1st. And I apologize for the delay, our dear patrons. I do want to start out by saying we couldn't do our podcast, our Feminist in Sports podcast, every week without you. We are totally grateful at all times for the support. And we hope that you'll enjoy this conversation as much as we do.
Sorry, it looked like my backyard was on fire. My husband's cleaning out the grill, but it was just all the smoke started going.
This is very apropos of the conversation we're about to have, because I want to talk about the newest sport that Burn It All Down is into, and that is the floor is
Lava!
the Netflix show. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. And it is based on the beloved and universal children's game of trying to escape the lava that is on the floor by avoiding the floor. And this is seconded by the, I think, the runner-up of the universally beloved game. The floor is an ocean of sharks. That is I'm hoping the second part to this floor is lava.
Netflix should call you.
Which will involve many, many more injuries. So my wonderful co-hosts, Jessica Luther and Amira Rose Davis, have agreed to do this discussion. And I'd like to start by asking them, do you think it qualifies as a sport? And I'll start with Jessica here. Do you think it qualifies?
I don't know, right? Because it's definitely a competition. The teams are competing against one another. It's definitely physical, and people are using their bodies and strategy, and all those things go into sport. But is it a sport? I mean, there's definitely skill. And one of the things I feel when watching it is I feel bad that I'm assuming that these people do not have a chance to practice in the rooms, because these rooms are like set up. There's actual water that's red and apparently warm based on their reactions to it. So I often feel like if they had a chance to practice, they would be much better at it. So like all of those things to me are things that go into sport. I don't know though if I feel like definitively I can't. Oh gosh, I'm being wishy-washy. I mean, yeah, sure, it's a sport.
We might be seeing a sport in its nascent stages.
Yeah.
This is how, sports emerge. There's not international regulations yet. We don't have things like penalties. So we might be witnessing the beginning of, a future Olympic category. Amira, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't really know how to define a sport, which is probably a bad thing to do to admit, given what I do. I don't know what the working definition is. I would say to me, if I find like there's a lot of things that are sports, I think parallel parking in Philadelphia, for instance, is a sport. And I also think that if you look at kind of a genre of games that require agility and athleticism and strategy, and you can look at something like the game show Wipeout or Legends of the Hidden Temple for all my millennials who are still traumatized by the guards, but also in love with that show. Or, of course, American Ninja Warrior, whatever that show is called. All of those to me are very much what this iteration of The Floor is Lava is coming from. And so it's as much a sport as those things. And I think it also has the element that we see from, say, like pro wrestling, where contestants are certainly primed to be their best dramatic selves and to oversell and emphasize things. And I think that happens in pro wrestling. And so I would say it has components of things that we consider sports in other places. So if it kind of works for it, sure. Yes, but I think without a doubt it requires all of the ideas about athleticism and strategy and skill and just general fortitude that it takes to excel in any athletic thing. And there's children screaming all around me.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Amira in 3 months, when Netflix comes out with its parallel parking show that's a competition, I will just give you credit for that because that is where we are headed at this point.
Basically.
I mean, I would say it's definitely alleviated some of my missing sports because I scream at the TV.
Yes.
I find myself like this. I feel really strongly about the team, so I'm also just
Oh, I have big feelings.
before we get into
I can't watch some of it. Like
Yeah.
I will like turn away.
Yep. So before we get into whether we could win at this particular sport and or game, because for me it's sport plus escape room in a sense, which is
Yeah.
I described it as escape room meets Wipeout meets Legend of the Hidden Temple meets American Ninja Warrior.
so I think it's an intellectual sport.
Yes.
It's a thinking woman's sport,
Mm.
or non-binary or whatever man. But it's a it's not just it's a sport that's very inclusive. So I think it's important to kind of emphasize that. One of my favorites was the drag queen, flight attendant. He was amazing. But let's talk about what's your favorite. So any favorite moments or teams or players, Amira?
Yeah, so my favorite moment when the show got me was actually just in the first episode. And so I would admit when it was on, when me and Samari turned it on, I was like, meh. And I was just kind of like passively watching it. And it was like the first team, they do like things about the team and whatever. And it was a mom sending her twins off to college and they were all like corny and whatever.
Shoddy.
And yeah. And so they were going and I was like slowly getting invested in them, but like not admitting it to myself yet. And my daughter was doing the same thing and we were both kind of like, trying to pretend we weren't as into it as possible. And the daughter found herself on apparatus that was very slippery and that she was clearly like falling. And you could see like she went through all the stages, like she was freaking out and then she was like, what do I do? Whatever. And they were trying
acceptance
and then acceptance about what was about to happen. And she saw that her mom and her brother were attempting to tip an obelisk down to try to use that for their next goal. And as she started to slip, she jumped and pushed it and sacrificed herself. And at that exact moment, me and Samari, both opposite sides of the couch, like completely stood up, were invested, and we're like, Talia! It's like now our hero. And it gave birth to also my favorite moment in the show, which was when the mom was trying to hold on and the brother was like, do it for this. And she was like, do it for Talia! It was the funniest thing to me. So that is absolutely hands down my favorite moment, which is like, it's a 2-part moment because immediately after that, one of the teams they were against was like the team that I cannot stand the most. I really wanted them to fail, and they were very close to winning. And they had all of their players, and they were moving very fast, and they were right near the exit. And then within the span of 15 seconds, 2 of the teammates, and that's when I was like, I'm in. That was a plot twist. That's like basically them being up 28-3 going into the fourth quarter. Somehow not winning the Super Bowl. Like that was that moment for me. So my favorite moments, definitely.
That was very moving. Jessica?
I enjoy rooting for people and also rooting against people. So I will say that I deeply enjoyed the annoying Boston boys who kept talking about Tom Brady a lot. And I was like, ooh, this was recorded before you lost your golden boy. So it was really that was fun to watch them fail after all of the braggadocio about, especially around like Tom Brady in particular. I was like, wow, this is going to be very painful for them to watch back, just in general, but also
it's like nobody is actually like, I mean, they're just the worst. It was just the worst.
Yeah. And then I really liked towards the end, there were a group of 3 white women who were like, the way that the producer set them up, they were clearly like the social media girls who are on Instagram all the time and da-da-da-da-da-da. And so you really went into it like, okay, the girls, and they fucking rocked it. Like they, from the moment they stepped in, they had a plan. They all executed it. They threw their bodies into things. The one did my favorite thing, which it was the study. So they had the couches, and every time she jumped on one of those, she would throw the pillows into the lava. And I was like, thank you for making the space. Like that strategy, I was like, they are good, because she did. So I just really enjoyed the producer setup for that. Like they did the thing where they made me, they hit on all those cliches and those stupid sort of sexist narratives that set you up in a certain direction, and then allowed those women to just rock the hell out of this floor is lava thing. So that one for me was very fun.
It's fascinating to watch both the like villains of it within the teams too.
Oh,
Yes.
So
Yes.
like, you know, there was one where there were 3 college roommates and they're kind of ragging on one of them and saying you're never gonna
Yes.
go on. And then he's the only one who like gracefully does the entire course. And you're like, yay! Like, but then there was the 3 brothers, they're triplets.
Yeah, that's who Amira was talking about, I think, right?
They're
That you didn't like?
with the America flags on.
Yeah. And I so didn't like them, but I would say there's this moment in a bad way that's very poignant where if I was their mom, I would sit them down and have a talking to, because they were really like criticizing each other's hairlines.
Yes.
And then the one that was like the sad hairline man, he was doing something, and the one brother says he peaked. He stopped working out 2 weeks ago. And the guy goes, I was sad.
Good TV, man. It's good TV.
And the kids cannot stop saying to each other, like if they're like, oh, pasta again, and I answer and I'm like, I was sad. Amira?
I have a question for you guys. Which room do you think is the hardest?
That pyramid is really hard.
That pyramid
is what is that? The Egypt
that's
one?
in the
what do they call it?
The museum.
Study, yeah, the museum.
Oh yeah, the museum. Okay, yes.
The one that always gets me is the like planetarium one, like with the planets. Because the planet, your 2 choices essentially are to jump on these round planets, which is my other favorite moment. The UCLA basketball player, the former one, who jumped on the planet, like who went almost over, and just like who has this ability on like literally his fingertips rotate his entire body back in slow motion. You can literally see his entire center of gravity shifts, and he's literally falling, and then like by the grace of his fingertips somehow we were like, what? Anyways, where your 2 courses of that room are to jump on these planets that are slick and round and kind of already just, you don't have good landing surface on those. And then, or to like do the kind of wall thing to get on this really thin rocket. And then there's like a massive spaceship that is also impossible. And then, so the first round, right, like if you press the red button, it gave you an extra like thin rocket to be on. And this one, if you pressed it, it soaked everything and made it worse. And I was just like, this room was already impossible. Because in the first round, remember, it was only one person on any 3 teams got through it.
And they also had the thing that looked like it would be the like lunar landing pod looking thing that looks like it would be steady, and as soon as someone jumps on it, it moves a lot. So if you didn't test that before, then you were going in. And then they also had the tippy telescope, which you also didn't know would tip until you like throw your body on it, and it's too late to do anything about it. Like there were a lot of tricks in that one that the other ones didn't necessarily have. Like I felt like the other rooms you could kind of tell like what, even though the pyramid was also
the pyramid was deceptive. And then I would say the other thing was the bar stool chairs.
Yes.
You didn't know they rotated until you jumped on it and were just...
Yeah, but did anyone successfully do those? I don't think they did.
I feel like no.
I feel like once someone was on it, you're like, I'm done.
Well, the other fun thing is when the bed spins.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a group of little league coaches, which is also one of my villain teams.
Yes.
And we were really happy they lost. And
yes, they were a lot.
They were going around on the bed, and you could just see him like getting woozy and then have to jump and keep your balance.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I hope that when Burn It All Down goes on there that we don't get that room, but I'll be in training in terms of that.
And the Little League team was also a good example of one of the things I hated the most, which was one of the three men just stood there at the
The whole
entrance
time.
for like almost the entire time. And I was
How
like,
about
what
the one time,
are
I
you
forget what team
doing?
it was, they had one person who was at the entrance the entire time, and then finally even the announcer guy was
Yeah,
like,
he made fun of
you
him.
have to go. And then he got on the first thing and fell in.
Yes.
I was like, he literally did nothing this whole time.
That was that part. Anyone who did that particular thing, I was instantly like, you are not. I am
Because
not
also,
a fan.
so maybe that's a good jumping off point to talk about strategy. What drove me insane was that if you know that at the end of the day, your time is going to be the tiebreaker, I don't understand why there's so much standing around by the lead person, because it seems to me that if you're sending one person who's already fairly by the steps, like just have them clock that time. At the very least, you know that if it comes down to them being the only person standing, it's a tie break, then you have it. Like there's some things where it's great that you still have two people in the field, but there's so many times where I saw people kind of like standing around or talking, and I was like, do you not understand the time component of this competition? Move.
A lot of them did not have the mental toughness. They're there to make jokes. They're there to like try to look cute. I mean, they are not focused. Like the karaoke singers, they opened a fortune cookie.
That's right.
I was very perplexed by that whole team, starting with the fact that they met at karaoke and were best friends.
I was like, this is terrible. One thing I think we could talk through about our strategy is that I saw a lot of women try to go in groups and then help each other balance with their hands, and that was quite successful.
Yes.
And I was interested in that, and I thought, I mean, for our particular team, what could we do? I think we could win.
Oh
Yeah. I mean, Jessica's wingspan alone.
I know. So I have wingspan.
This is why, so I would have to say, I told Jess about this show because me and Samara were watching.
This is why we're all here. Amira told me, and then we told Brenda.
So we were watching the show, and we were like, who do we want to be on our team? And so like my sister, because me and my sister are like very similar and competitive, and she's very great, very athletic. And then like Thelma, she does Spartan races, and we're like, okay, but like not always like the strategy part of things, but it's fine because that's why we're there. And then me and Samara were sitting there, we're like, Jessica. I was like, she
very
has
long.
the length and the smarts, and she weight trained. I was like, that's a wrap. That's our team.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah.
I feel like Brenda, I was thinking about this ahead of time because the thing I feel like I could not do are monkey bars. I feel like I am strong, but I'm so long that the weight is is
Bren
very
would be good
far.
for those things that need like a little scrappy person.
Yes, which there are definitely people. There were ones where it was like really useful.
But speaking of that, like you mentioned this before with a lot of women's teams, but like one of the things that one of the groups of Black guys did, I think they were in the whatever with the tippy canoe.
Yes,
and it has monkey bars, and so part of the thing about it is that it's really wobbly, and so they have that you can crank it down and then walk on it, which is actually not less wobbly.
If you can do monkey bars,
right, then that's
better.
almost better.
Yeah.
But one of the things I appreciate about them, because at first I was like, just cross it, go, leave him, but then I liked that he stayed and he held the canoe, so instead of being wobbly monkey bars where you weren't able to get momentum or even really a sense of balance, it became kind of straightforward monkey bars, and he even reached out and pulled him. And I think you're right, Bren, like those are the moments that feel like, oh yeah, use each other, like this is part of the strategy.
Yeah, and obviously Amira brings the escape room knowledge, right? Like if anyone's going to get me from point A to point B, it's going to be Amira Rose Davis, and I'm going to trust everything she tells me to do. So I feel like that part of it would be
we would be
perfect.
So good.
We really would.
And I also think
apply.
Amira would be looking for the good red button. She's good at, untie that rope,
Yes.
Good general in this situation. And I'm very good at accepting direction. It's so perfect. I'm very good at like doing what I'm told if I don't feel an expert, right? Like I feel like, oh good, I'll just focus on like my actual doing it. And I'm used to falling. I fall all the time on my face and
Which is a really important thing. These people fall
Right.
constantly onto the
Things.
apparatus,
And
right?
I
like
think
you have
that's-
to be willing to just sort of
Yeah.
throw
And those are the
yourself.
people who are the best. Like
Yes.
who are just like, I'm jumping and here it is and this is happening. Like that to me is yes.
You have to, and I feel like we'd be really good at seeing the whole room at once. Like one of the
Right.
things I liked about those 3 women that I talked about who did a very good job is that they were just so good at like planning the next step. So like they would tell each other, you're going to do this and then this. And like, if
Right.
that doesn't work, do this. Like they just had a lot, they were just very good at seeing the room. I think we would be so good at it. Now we're applying.
I'm
So look
ready.
this up.
I'm game.
We can totally use it to get to New Zealand in 2023.
Look at that. My other favorite thing is when those fiancés were talking about what they were going to do with their $10,000, and the whole time I was like, I don't think they understand what
Boys
10,000.
to men.
Yeah, and I was for the most part I like kind of ignore the host, but at the point where he was like, do they have any idea what $10,000 is? I was like, thank you.
Yes, and it was the trio who were like gonna go to Wimbledon, and I was like, good luck to you.
Okay.
Like, okay, after taxes, good luck.
Can go.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll put it towards. So
Yes. We'll be realistic. I'm willing to go on there and say that I'll fly to New Zealand with it if that's what they want me to say.
Want from us.
Okay, last question. If there's one thing that you have to
Ooh, this
work
light looks really cute.
your patient,
Sorry. Keep going.
far
I'm
from
just
studios,
Very millennial.
what if you all had one thing that you have to work on from now until when we go on the show? What is it you're going to focus on? Where's your
monkey bars.
monkey bars? Okay, that's monkey
Hands down. I would go tell my trainer that I need to be able to do monkey bars.
That's a great question.
I think for me, I'm going to be doing a lot of stretching in order, because of my height, you know, there's times you're just going to have to tiptoe. The jumping, I think, is fine. Spider monkey onto a planet ball. I feel like I can do that, and I'm not afraid to hit my chin because I've done it so much. And I'm okay with face planting. But I think the stretch, you know, when you have to move between different things. So I've been using my couches already and trying to see if I can, you know, improve, you know, the flexibility. I'm a runner, so flexibility in my hamstrings is not the best. So I've been really, I would like to be able to do the splits by the time we're there in the case I need, you know, to really use that. That's where I'm going to be at for the next couple of weeks.
That's great. Yeah, I think it would be grip strength.
Grip strength.
That's
yeah.
another
So,
one.
you know, I think Jess is, you know, right with like upper body strength. You can never, you know, that's great. Like I would keep doing that. But I think there's like some of these precise moments where like that
Holding
fine
on.
point of grip, like holding on is the name of the game. And that is actually a particular use of muscles that I'm like I had like really bad carpal tunnel when in really all my pregnancies, but especially with Zachary, to the point where like I could, and because I was finishing my dissertation, I had to ignore the fact that I couldn't feel 3 fingers on my hand. And actually in my left hand, I didn't get feeling back in my fingers until Zachary was almost a year old. And so I'm like have a very keen awareness of those muscles that you use to grip for certain things. And I notice it like little things that you do that you're like, when you're like up on a subway and you're kind of holding that thing, like I find like after 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, like my like fingers hurt. It's not my arm. It's not like that. Like I can do push-ups, but even when you're doing push-ups, you're not working those muscles. So it's a very precise muscle that often gets overlooked, but you know, the little hand things are helpful for this, but grip strength.
Yeah, maybe I'll grip strength while I stretch.
Mm.
I'll try to incorporate both of those. Well, you heard it here first, dear patrons. Burn It All Down is going on the floor is lava, or the floor is an ocean of sharks. If that
You are very wedded to this idea. And also, can I
don't
say
think
before
I want to do the ocean of sharks one.
But can we say as we sign off, I like when Bren Dr. Elsie over here is trying to explain the history of floor is lava to people. It's like that children's game in which the floor is lava, and so you have to get off the floor. Like the instructions to this could not be the easier. Like it's the easiest thing to explain. The floor is lava. Do not be on the floor. Like, you can touch anything, but not the floor. There's no other instructions.
But it is a uniquely global game that I feel like has.
Although, can I push back on you a little bit?
Please, because
Just only because when I heard you say it was really inclusive, I'm like just very aware that I think that it's not a sport that lends itself to being inclusive for multiple abilities. And
right.
I was thinking about that a
Right.
lot just because of the nature of how it's set up.
True.
And
Yeah.
there's some sports where, you know, we can see those, and I think they've been doing a great job in terms of technology. And this is one of those where I think like the premise of it, so much of it is about like jumping and staying off the floor. And so I do think that there's a way that is closed off for you know, certain abilities, particularly like use of legs.
Yeah, I thought about that too as I was watching.
Yeah. That's so we need them to work on that.
They do. And then, but I think the spin-off potential for this is grand. And also I'd put in a plug, like if they want to bring back Legends of the Hidden Temple for 2020, I'm ready to work through my trauma about the temple guards. And I think we would also, you know, I'm ready for that as well, is all I say.
Bring it. We are so ready. All right. Thanks again, patrons, for making this podcast happen. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
And I suck